While in the dual phase in Pokken, you can enter a high or low stance by holding up or down on your controller. Blaziken's low stance gives him counter armor against low moves, while his high stance gives him counter armor against certain other moves. In this video, I will be going in depth on the moves that Blaziken can counter using his high and low stances. As a side note, anything that I say that can be low stance by Blaziken can also be done by Machamp, Mewtwo, Shadow Mewtwo, and Mega Gengar. They can also be completely avoided using Chandelure or Gengar's high stances. Anything that I say that can be high stance by Blaziken can also be done by Charizard and Garchomp. They both have red hit stun resist armor instead of the blue counter armor, so they will still take damage and phase shift points from the moves that they stance. The damage is half of what it normally would have been. However, if the phase shifts, the stance fails and you take the full damage. Garchomp has some additional effects. He can high stance some moves that Blaziken cannot, for instance, Braixen's Uncharged Fire Spin and Suicune's Hydro Pump. He also has the ability Rough Skin, so the attacker will take 10 damage when standing next to him for every proc of his high stance. Some of you are probably asking yourselves, why should try and stance a move when you can CADC or block? Blocking a move will leave you on block stun, where you're unable to act until the block stun is over, and depending on the character, CADCing a move can leave you very open. Take this side-by-side comparison of a typical Lucario trap of charged Aura Sphere into uncharged Aura Sphere, and Blaziken high stancing versus CADCing it. After the high stance, Blaziken is able to immediately block, and it comes up on the 27th frame. While if he CADCs, he's committed for the entire dash animation and is unable to block until the 66th frame. So the CADC will cover more distance but will leave yourself open as you're completely committed to the dash. Another potential issue with doing stances is using them against moves that have follow-ups that cannot be stanced. Nightshade brought up the idea of using a counter attack after the stance to combat these moves and punish the opponent for doing the follow-up. This has an advantage over trying to counter both moves, as some of these attacks last long enough to hit the vulnerable counter attack frames. In this video, I'll be covering all the moves that Blaziken can counter using his high and low stances. For the characters where something new is found, you'll see this icon on the screen over their character portrait that will let you know that they have something brand new in the video. Also in this video, I'll go over certain supports that interaction with Blaziken's stances, namely Emolga, Quagsire, and Yveltal. If you would like to skip to an individual Pokemon, just click their image on the screen. Against Blaziken, you can low stance 2Y and 2X. After low stancing 2X, you can use a counter attack to punish the follow-up. You can also high stance high jump kick, although you cannot high stance EX high jump kick as it pierces counters. For Pikachu, you can low stance 2Y and 2X. You can also low stance 5A, both uncharged and charged. On Lucario, you can low stance 2Y and 2X. You can high stance uncharged Aura Sphere, but you cannot high stance charged Aura Sphere. When Lucario is in burst, you cannot high stance any charge of Aura Sphere. Against Gardevoir, you can low stance 2Y and 4Y. You cannot low stance 2X, however, as it pierces counters. For Pikachu Libre, you can low stance 2Y and 2X. After low stancing 2X, you can use a counter attack to punish a follow-up. You can high stance Pikachu Libre's quick attack after double team. On Sceptile, you can low stance 2Y and 2X. You can also low stance the growth of the plant on his mid-air A attack, including while he's in burst. Against Gengar, you can low stance 2Y, 2X, 2A, and projectile on his charge A. You can high stance 5A, but not charge 5A. Normally Blaziken gets hit by Gengar's 8Y. However, if Blaziken uses his high stance, 8Y and 7Y will miss, but 9Y will still hit him. When Gengar is in burst, you can low stance 2Y, 2X, 2A, and projectile on charge A. However, you can no longer high stance 5A, both uncharged and charged. Blaziken cannot avoid 8Y with high stance while Gengar is in his burst. For Machamp, you can low stance the first part of 2X. After low stancing 2X, you can use a counterattack to punish the follow-up. With Braixen, you can low stance 2Y and 2X. You can high stance 6Y, 5A, and charged 5A. However, when Braixen has Sunny Day, you have to low stance the first hit of uncharged 5A and high stance the second. The timing to do this is pretty tight, but I found that low stancing the first hit and blocking the second works very well. You can still high stance both projectiles with fully charged 5A during Sunny Day. Against Chandelure, you can low stance 2Y, 2X, and projectile on uncharged and fully charged 5X. You can also low stance the landing hitbox of Jump X, but only the landing hitbox. You can high stance 4X, both uncharged and fully charged. Now, unfortunately, Blaziken's high stance is not as good as it could be for Chandelure, since all his Pokémon's pierce counterattacks. This means that 5A, both uncharged and charged, and his mid-air A attack cannot be high stance because they pierce counterattacks. For Suicune, you can low stance 2Y, 2X, and you can high stance 5A. On Weavile, you can low stance 2Y, 2YY, and 2X. You can high stance Weavile's Fake Out. We can also go for Fake Out after using Fury Swipes. So how do you deal with Fury Swipes on block while still being able to stance the Fake Out? If you block the first hit of Fury Swipes, you're able to let go of the block button and your character will still block all the remaining hits. Using this, we can block the first hit, release block, and hold up to buffer a high stance, so if Weavile goes for a Fake Out, you will always be able to high stance it. With Charizard, you can low stance 2Y and 2X. Against Garchomp, you can low stance 2Y, 2X, Earthquake. In the last video, I showed that you could low stance Garchomp's counterattack. However, in patch 1.3, they changed it to a medium so it can no longer be low stance. You can high stance Garchomp's 8A. On Mewtwo, you can low stance 2Y, 2X, and his counterattack. You cannot low stance a fully charged counterattack as it pierces counters. You can use a counter to punish the follow-up after low stancing 2A. You can high stance 6Y. After high stancing 6Y, you can use a counterattack to punish both the weak and the strong follow-up. On Shadow Mewtwo, you can low stance 2Y, 2YY, 2X, and Earthquake. Blaziken cannot high stance Emolga as it pierces counter. Blaziken can however low stance all of Quagsire, and all hits of Yveltal after the first. A link to the Google document for all the moves that can be lower high stances in the description. As a final note, I only state the burst modes where the characters had a different move or an ability was no longer able to be stanced. I did not state them, it's safe to assume that the same moves can still be lower high stance. Also, I want to give a special thanks to SSJ Luffy, Nightshade, Boss Hog, Madluck, and Catfight for assisting with information, filming, or helping with new ideas I had not considered before. Thanks for watching.